warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome again to our panel series where we are discussing the tenets of belief. And last week we had covered um, something that was very important. Like it was almost um, the reason we are trying to um, improve our faith, our belief, or strengthen our belief. And that is because we don't want to stay in a superficial belief state, but we want to be able to gain a state of belief that is really deep. And like the example that was mentioned last week, um, instead of just superficially telling, okay, these all belongs to God, trying to see the stamp and proof and seal of his lordship and his sustainership and his um, power and wisdom and knowledge in every single thing, every single being in the universe, and so that not leaving any space for other, partners other than the one God. So that is a natural follow-up to that is a discussion on causes because um, although when we when we think about like or when we discuss in the context of partners to God, we always think about either like idols or something very obvious, but causes are the more sneaky way where we are exposed to partners to God, because when we ascribe things to causes, um, they can be seen as somewhat of a partners in the execution of things around the world, or the how God runs things in the world. So in that sense, understanding the true nature of causes will be important. So that the second part of that piece that we have been reading last week is related to that. So God willing, inshallah, we'll try to cover that this week. So just a quick mention, um, actually repetition from last week for the ones who have not been here, like why we are doing this panel series uh, and what we are really doing here is we are going through a text, Risale-i Nur. This is a collection that has been written by Bediüzzaman Said Nursi in the 20th century, um, and it is an commentary on the Quran, but its emphasis on tenets of belief because, like causes, right? I mean, the sources of doubts to belief has been increasing for all believers throughout the world, not only the Muslim world, but also other religions. And emphasis on belief in one God and other, tenets of belief that comes with the package, I suppose. Um, this Risale-i Nur collection is aimed at explaining those verses from the Quran in very um, through parables or through logical explanations. And the method that we are trying to do is called muzakara, and that is a pretty traditional method where we are reading a text together and then we try to um, share our insights about that text and also explain certain things that might be that might need certain backgrounds. So with that, I'll introduce our speakers, who is a subset of our speakers because uh, Brother Junaid from DC wasn't available due to a work-related emergency. But our other speakers will be with us. Baykar Yurdakul, Imam at our mosque in Bloomfield, Connecticut. Ömer Faruk Ramazan is also an assistant Imam in the Bloomfield Muslim Community Center that is run by our organization, Lighthouse for Humanity. Again, Brother Harun Prim will be joining us from Mississippi. Um, and myself, Mustafa Akbulut. I am joining from Boston, and I will be moderating again this week too. So with that, this is like an outline of what we'll do. Again, this is a subset of what we tried to um, cover the past week, um, and it is connected. And I think there are two subsections to this section, to this part that we will read. And the first will be covering the true nature of apparent causes. I call this now apparent causes because what we see as causes, we are going to discuss them being only apparent, not having real power. And the other section is if they don't have real power, why do we even have them? And the second section is to address that pretty much the wisdom. Why did God create those causes if they didn't really have much of a power or a say in the creation? So, um, with that, inshallah, we will read the text. Um, and again, it is from the 22nd word from the Risale collection, and it is the second station of it. And we have read the first part, the first flash, and this part will be a reminder that will come after that. And this is discussing the thing about causes. Of course, the topic is a wide-ranging topic, and it is not I mean, it is deep because the causes are everywhere. We are very exposed to that, and we tend to explain everything with cause and effect relationship. So it might not come very natural in the first glance. Uh, it takes time, right? Like for myself as a scientist, right? It does. Take time to internalize these things. But I think, inshallah, this will be a nice entry point to that discussion, and we can continue. Again, just a point about the question and answer. We'll try to have more time this week for question and answer. Um, Feel free to send those questions to me through the chat, and I'll try to pose them to our um, panelists at the end of the session. Last week was a great is had a great like questions that we tried to answer. So hopefully this week we'll have a similar experience. With that, inshallah, I'll read this part first, as we did last week. I'll read through it, and then we can go back and um, discuss different parts. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. O heedless worshipper of causes, causes are a veil, for divine dignity and grandeur require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one, for divine unity and glory require it to be thus, and necessitate their independence. The officials of the pre-eternal monarch are not executives of the sovereignty of lordship. They are rather the heralds of his sovereignty, and the observers and superintendents of his lordship. And those officials and means are to make known the dignity of power and majesty of lordship, so that power should not be seen to be associating in base and lowly matters. Not like a human king, tainted by impotence and want, who therefore takes officials as partners. That is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. For, like the two faces of a mirror, everything has a face that looks to this manifest world, which resembles the mirror's colored face, and may be the means to various colors and states. And everything also has a face that looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. In the apparent face that looks to the manifest world, there may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power, and causes have been put to be both the source and the means of those states. But in respect of reality and the face that looks to their creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should itself be associated with it. It is not incompatible with its dignity. Therefore, causes are purely apparent and in reality have no true effect. A further wisdom in apparent causes is this: causes have been put as the aim so that unjust complaints and baseless objections should not be directed at the absolutely just one, God. For the faults arise from them, the causes, from their incapacity and lack of ability. A comparison is narrated which is in the form of a subtle example illustrating this mystery.
Before going to that example,
Yes. Should we go back and explain those parts before going to the example?
yeah, yeah, I mean, the first slide.
All right. So my intention was to read through and go back, but if that is going to be, that is fine because this is a nice stopping point too, if you think it'll be easier. Okay, inshallah, I'll go back. So, I will read this couple sentences again
Mhm.
because you know these are relatively deep and heavy. Um, and inshallah, then we can talk about what they mean and how we can understand them. O heedless worshipper of causes, causes are a veil for divine dignity and grandeur require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one, for divine unity and glory require it to be thus, and necessitate their independence. I guess the first thing that hits me here is this rather harsh entry, right? O heedless worshipper of causes. Like, how should, like, what are we? Maybe the question could be, what are we doing? I mean, because this is like, I don't know, for people who have read Risale-i Nur before, would know that the author has written these first and foremost for his own self, right? And that person is a very learned scholar in Islam, and in that sense, we wouldn't, consider that the author to be a worshipper of causes, but this is an interesting thing because this, in other words, it might be something that we might all have certain share, although we might not feel it, or certain tendencies. So maybe we can open up like why maybe this entry to the topic. Oh, heedless worshipper of causes. Um, how should we understand that? Harun abi, do you have insights onto that?
Um, yeah, thanks for all coming here to understand, let's say, very important, significant topic, because I believe all people coming here together have the same intention to understand life, to understand a meaningful life, and to understand why we are in this world. So these are ultimate and the most profound questions of human being. So we are here together for the same purpose in the first place. And these passages from Risale-i Nur are very strong and deep, as you mentioned. Of course, even we are doing introduction to introduction type of things to understand these meanings. But this is kind of introduction for all of us. I mean, time will never be enough to understand deeper and deeper. Yes, this "O heedless worshipper of causes," it's a very important statement that I understand as well. First, do we accept this? For example, do I accept that I'm kind of worshipper of causes? When I look at my life, for example, when I have headache, I just get medicine from the shelf, let's say, and when I take the pill in, then my headache is gone. Then immediately I, in a way, say thanks to this pill, or thanks to the manufacturer company of this pill, or thanks all the people bringing this pill together. No problem. I mean, of course, we should be thankful. It's another thing. But when I look at my heart, if I'm neglecting, ignoring the ultimate creator of the healing, which is the cure, remedy from this pill, if I ignore this, then immediately my position is worshipper of causes. This is what I understand. Similarly, for example, I'm working at a university. If I think that my life is definitely deeply, ultimately connected to this university, not all the creator of everything, then I'm worshipper of causes. I see the university as one of the causes that I'm living or surviving. So this is in a way confusing two things. So everything, every cause in our lives is just means, we would say. They are means for some function in our lives. And this means are kind of mercy from the creator, from the God, from Allah. If we see all the means as mercy of the creator, then their positions, in a way, they are positioned in the right place. But if we see these causes as having the ultimate power, having the ultimate knowledge, because if we ignore the creator, we have to distribute all the attributes of the creator to the causes, right? If I say that my life is in hands of this and that, then I'm saying that these causes are life giver to me. If I say that this pill gives me remedy, then I give the attribute of remedy to these pills or the manufacturers, whatever. So I give the attributes of the ultimate creator, God, Allah, to these causes. Then who am I worshiping in this case? It is the causes that I'm worshiping. So this start is beautiful. Before just moving in, I want to give references to some verses which are striking at this means.
Sure.
For example, in Surah Al-Yusuf, ayah 106, it is mentioned that most of them believe not in Allah without associating partners with Him. So Quran says that people, or most of the people, believe in Allah by associating partners with Him. So how do we associate partners with the Creator? This is the causes. We give power, we give knowledge, we give many attributes of Allah to the causes. This is associating partners, and it is obvious in this Yusuf 106. And also another surah is Surah An-Nisa, ayah 136. Over there, it says, "Oh, who you believe in Allah." That's interesting. So this declaration is to believers, and it says to believers to believe. So what does it mean? If you're a believer, then why are you told to believe? And it is the same reason, because we are believing in a state of associating partners. So in a way, this verse, Nisa 136, is telling us to just clean our hearts from associating partners to the Creator. And one last thing, there is the supreme sign, which is named as Ayatul Kubra. It is part of the Risale-i Nur collection, and it is in the book Rays, Seventh Ray. Over there, the supreme sign is Suratul Isra, ayat number 44. Over there also, the ayat, the supreme sign, mentions that the seven skies and the earth and all that lies within them just praise Allah. There is nothing that does not chant His praises, but you do not understand these. So also this is a very important ayat which mentions that everything, skies and the earth and in between, is created by Allah. Nothing, there is no partner at all. But the thing is, we cannot distinguish and we cannot understand. So this ayat just tells us to concentrate and understand that things are like this in a way.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is really a great intro and a great summary of like why we might be suffering from this, sicknesses of this age, especially of relying on causes and seeing causes as the real effect. And it is also striking that, all these messages are given in the Quran through a variety of verses. Great. And I would like to read the rest of the sentence and, ask other panelists to chime in, inshallah. I'll read that couple sentences again. O heedless worshipper of causes are a veil. For divine dignity and grandeur require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally bestowed one, God. For divine unity and glory require it to be thus and necessitate their independence. So what I see here is like two separate attributes of God that require, one side requiring causes to be there as a veil, another side, and specifically divine dignity and grandeur, requiring causes to be a veil there. And the second type of divine attribute, I can say maybe, is divine unity, in other words, like oneness of God, and glory, gloriousness of God, require them to have no effect in another way. I guess, right? Because that which acts and performs matters is power of God, power of eternally bestowed one. So those two maybe types of attributes is probably one thing that we can think about and expand upon. And of course, we can try to understand that a bit further. Maybe Brother Ömer, do you have insights onto these parts maybe?
Thank you. Here in the beginning, as you know, our topic here is divine unity. Divine unity. That's where we left off yesterday and last week, and we are picking up from here. Divine unity and causes, right? I see these two things to focus on. As divine unity, as Muslims, we believe in Tawheed, divine unity, meaning nothing happens without the permission, command, and knowledge and power of Allah, right? Everything, nothing moves without His permission, His command, His knowledge, and His power. This is the thing we should keep in mind first when we hear, and we will see that a lot, divine unity. And here in the beginning, as again, we see causes are a veil. Allah Ta'ala, when He created the universe, He connected everything to causes, right? Causes and effects for a purpose. but we should know here, as we see, that causes are a veil, and we are seeing the aspect of here, the causes being a veil to protect, to preserve divine dignity. God, one of the purposes of, God putting causes in this universe, placing the causes, is to preserve his dignity. Because as the human beings, the things that we like in this world, in this universe, in our lives, the things that we love, the things that we like are a lot less than the things that we don't like. I mean, in our lives and in the universe, in the world, in society, if we look, the things that disturb us, the things that annoy us, the things that are difficult for us to understand is more than the things we love. So these causes are placed so that we will not criticize God. And as I said, I mean, and we will see that in the following slides, inshallah. Everything that God created is for a purpose and is beautiful. Everything is beautiful. But as human beings, since we do not see the wisdoms and purposes behind it, we criticize. And God placed those causes to protect, to preserve his dignity, and actually for us to protect us as well, so that we will not criticize him, right? We go and criticize the causes, as Professor Harun, he said, the sickness, for example, we criticize, I mean, we criticize ourselves, right, as cause, or others, or the weather. We criticize other things, not Allah. We do not see Allah, so actually it is Allah who gave us the sickness, but we criticize others. So this is the causes are placed there to protect his dignity. This is the first thing, inshallah, we should keep in mind. But as believers, we should see God behind this veil, and we should understand, and we should try to search that behind everything that we do not like is beauty and perfection of Allah and a lot of wisdoms. As believers, we should unveil it, and we should see God's power behind it. And when we see that, instead of criticizing, we should actually be thankful for it. Because as I said, behind sickness, behind deaths, behind all the things we do not like, since it is the creator, who created them, right? They are there with the permission, with the command of the one who is most merciful and most compassionate. It should be beautiful. So when I have sickness, if as a believer, if I see that the giver is God, the giver is Allah, I should love it instead of criticizing it. As a believer, when I see God behind that veil, instead of criticizing the sickness and others, I should love the sickness, and I love the sickness, and I give thanks. This is also the fruit of this, the fruit of believing in oneness of God, that nothing happens without his command, without his permission, without his knowledge, without his power. So everything that happens to me in my life is a cause for me to give thanks to him. Everything, and this should be the fruit of believing in the oneness of God, inshallah.
Well, yeah, indeed, these are great points to put out, because as you said, right, I mean, there are things that we might not like as well in the universe. Again, seeing them as veils, especially, there are all different types of causes. I mean, there are causes that are not knowledgeable, or they're not conscious, but there are causes that are conscious. There are, like, for example, medications, right? Like the painkillers are unconscious, but they're also conscious causes, like the people who make them and stuff. And it is a process, maybe, to understand all of them together as causes, and trying to see God behind them, and indeed maybe seeing that maybe the bigger picture, that everything is really beautiful when you look at it. So that is probably a process, and we will, as we read through, we will maybe understand that further, because I'll actually read through some this part. I mean, I'll finish this slide and some part from the next slide, and then I'll go to Brother Baikar about his insights on that. Also, I'll read this, and I'll read one paragraph from the other slide, and inshallah we'll go there. O heedless worshipper of causes, I'm starting from the beginning. O heedless worshipper of causes, causes are a veil for divine dignity and grandeur, require them to be thus. But that which acts and performs matters is the power of the eternally besought one. For divine unity and glory require to be thus, and necessitate their independence. The officials of the pre-eternal monarch, God, are not executives of the sovereignty of lordship. They are rather the heralds of his sovereignty and the observers and superintendents of his lordship. And those officials and means are to make known the dignity of power and majesty of lordship, so that power should not be seen to be associating in base and lowly matters, not like a human king, tainted by impotence and want, who therefore takes officials as partners. That is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. So there are a couple things that I can see here, and I'll ask Brother Baikar to explain a bit. One thing I can see is it opened up some of the points that Brother Omar has been mentioning about the true nature of causes, because we know that causes are there, and we know one reason at least, right, to protect God's dignity. But what are their functions, right? I mean, this is like opening up the functions, and in a sense, they're being not executives. Their function is not to execute. That's what I can see here, rather being heralds and observers and superintendents of his lordship. So these are maybe key points: being observers and heralds, all these causes doing those functions. And the second thing that I could see here is a comparison to a human king, because what I see from here, and again, I'll ask Brother Baikar to explain further, is that a human king or a government, I think, right? I mean, there are all these officials, there's a structure, or a company too, right? There's a CEO, but also there are all these different mid-level managers and things and the power is somewhat distributed to that power structure in a way, and that is because humans are not able to do everything themselves. But I guess what is being said here is that unlike a human king who needs all those officials as their partners, God does not really need them, but he still has these officials in place to preserve the dignity in the superficial view of the mind, um, as Brother Omar has explained. So maybe these 2 points, like how we cannot compare God with why that is not a good comparison. That is probably one part, and the other part is, the true functions of the causes as being observers and heralds. Brother Baikar, do you have thoughts on those matters, and also the topics that we have covered so far about causes?
Thank you for the reflections of brothers. I guess we covered most of the stuff. My point is, even though we are very familiar with the concept, we are living through this in all our lives, but it will take time to digest it. because we have a lot of veils, covers, dust, in our hearts, in our vision, in our understanding. So it will take time to digest it, but mashallah, brothers, go deep in the topic and explain the very, to my understanding, tricky parts of it. I want to just go back to the very beginning, the introduction part. So as you said, this is a very remarkable start. It's very it's really awakening call. Oh, heedless worshiper of causes. Oops, what did you say? I'm a Muslim. I worship Allah. I just believe in one God. I don't worship any idols, anything. What's this? Who's this causes, that somebody worships? Then he's summarizing here the whole chapter. I guess in this paragraph, the whole chapter is summarized. And then, inshallah, if we can read the following paragraphs, we will get an idea about it. But I will just try to share my understanding of this single statement. What's this worshiper of causes? So since my birth, I have been observing the universe within the chain of causes. Everything is related to a chain of causes. If I want a fruit, I go to a fruit tree. If I want to quench my thirst, I drink water. If I water this flower, it grows up. If not, it does not. And if clouds come, the rain comes. If not, we have no rain, etc., etc. I start seeing the things in this cause and effect relation. And then when we go to the school, the philosophy of this understanding also taught to us. Everything is related to certain causes, and if it's not there, I don't have the result. So it's even scientifically proven. So in a way, even though we call ourselves student of Quran, we are more of, I want to talk about first about my own self. I am more of a student of science, or with the old saying, philosophy. Now they have a philosophy of science, but philosophy most covers almost the whole thing. Now we call them sciences, social sciences, modern sciences. But first of all, the overall understanding of life is pushed or kind of bombarded or injected or inculcated in our veins. In this sense, we approach the whole life within this perspective. We see everything from a cause and effect relation chain. So what's wrong about this? This can get really, really, really thick, that now in our understanding, by the time, most of these causes are kind of partners of the creator. It's kind of, yes, there was a creator in the beginning. This universe, cannot be by itself. It was created by God, but, by the time, he kind of leave it to itself. It's running good, causes, and we have laws, we have, certain rules and regulations. So it's kind of running the life. And now we human beings developed a lot. We are, involved more and more in this business. And now kind of almost God is out of picture. So, for example, I'm not talking about a very, very, huge philosophical concept. I'm talking about my daily life. If I want to do something, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to try this one. If this solution does not work, then I'm going to pray. But we all know that as Muslims, from the very beginning of our religion, when we start learning Quran, when we start learning Sunnah, when we start learning the religious sciences, we start with Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah is the beginning of everything, good. So we start with the name of Allah. And then there's special du'as for everything, when we step out of the house, when we step into the masjid, when we get on the car, when we get out of the bed, everything is starts with a dua, a prayer, a supplication. So in our own understanding, contrary to the modern teachings that were taught to us in the school, we were taught that we are in need of Allah for everything. So any understanding, anything that gets credit in our understanding, anything that really occupies an significant importance beside Allah is a kind of partner in our faith. This is my understanding of this. Even in the Sharia, for example, we have a prayer for rain. So the most common practice of this, the whole people of the village gathers together, the leaders even, imams and shaykh and the qadi and everything, the headman of the village, they go together and they pray for rain in the case of drought. So there's a special part of this practice. They take even the small toddlers with them, small kids, children with them. So in the understanding of those children, this big lesson of Iman is inculcated. So they understand that even though when we open our eyes, first we see our parents, giving us the bread, the food, or whatever we need, we just cry out and, people around us give it to us. But even them are asking from Allah. Even my parents, my first chain in the chain of causes, my first door of application, right, is even going to Allah and asking for rizq, for food. So in the Sharia, we have the practice of this in every step of our religion. This is taught to us. But in the modern lifestyle, we are bombarded, we are pushed, we are indoctrinated by just the opposite. Now we are living in a world of causes. Everything is with cause and effect relation, chain of cause. So there's no place almost in our world for God, unless we just go with all the chain of causes and there's no solution. Then okay, I need to pray to God. It's kind of that our relation is just shrinked down to that level, unfortunately. So if I, as a Muslim, if I say that, I don't care about the causes, I just worship Allah, what is this causes? I'm faking myself, unfortunately. This is in our life. We cannot deny this. We live through this. We are in that set of mind. We just step by step every day we experience this. But inshallah, through this chapter we will analyze it and we will try to purify our thoughts and inshallah come to an understanding of our faith, inshallah.
Yeah, actually, yeah. One point, great point that you brought up, right? Like, is we are all in this. We are learning about this cause and effect relationship, about this order in the universe, and then we might actually ascribe some of those power to the causes that lead to them. And there is like actually I'm kind of connected with the question I got from one of the viewers, is that there is this notion, right, like in the Abrahamic tradition too, right, like the Prophet Abraham alayhi salam, when he was thrown in the fire, you know, God commands fire not to burn him. And it's also mentioned, I guess, in the 20th word. And I guess in the 20th word it says, fire does not act according to its nature. So understanding that, like does fire not burn? Like, because the relationship is kind of tricky. And after that, I'll go to the mirror, the example of the mirror, and I guess we won't really have time to go to the second part. For some reason, I'm not surprised, but that is, I guess, an important thing that we need to sort out. Like the how should we understand, like the things seem to have a nature to themselves, like fire burns. Should we understand that it does not? And maybe I'll go to Harun brother or Ömer brother, whoever wants to talk first about that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Maybe if I take some part of it, it is understanding. I think understanding the causes, actually understanding the attributes of Allah. We are saying that actually understanding an ultimate creator is not something that we personalize. I mean, if we think about Allah, God, he's not like it. I mean, we cannot imagine, we cannot just, let's say, wrap him address. We cannot just put an imagination. We cannot just make him solid. Whatever we are making solid, it will not be Allah, definitely. Then the way to learn about something ultimate, something abstract, something obsolete is by means of the attributes. This is how we are created. So when we talk about attributes, actually in tradition, we talk about names of Allah, activities of Allah. So when these are the very, let's say, understandable layers for us, names of Allah and activities of Allah. For example, when we look at the causes, we can see that there are, let's say, if it's a flower, we see that it is beautiful. But this beauty is not belonging to the flower. It is coming from some names of Allah. We understand that the creator of this flower is beautiful, so that it is beautiful. So we call Allah is Jamil. So where I am coming to, where I'm getting at is causes also is by means of some, let's say, names of Allah. The main name, I would say, is name Hakim. So Allah's Hakim, all-wise translation, Allah's Hakim name requires that everything in this world has to be connected to a cause. If we, for example, pursue that fire does not burn, that means we are not understanding the name Hakim. Hakim name requires that fire burns always. But the thing is, we cannot attribute the burning feature to the fire itself. It is, I mean, the act behind, the power behind, the design behind, it is all belonging to the creator. Because we understand that nothing is happening itself. Fire is not itself, it's just delegates of Allah. It's just the means of Allah to do some good stuff. If as a person I just use it in the wrong way, that's totally another story. Still, it is created. The mass is created by Allah, but creation of mass is not mass. So these are some related topics. Again, returning back to the question, yes, fire always burns. But for us to see that it comes from Allah, especially as a sign of prophecy, Allah just sends, cuts, let's say, the laws for a short time for some purposes. This is what we call miracle, right? Let's say immediate and observable miracle. So fire not burning Ibrahim alayhi salam is an obvious miracle. But other than these miracles, again, because of the attributes of Allah requiring causes to happen in the same way, they have to, in a way.
Yeah, thank you. Brother Ömer, if you have anything to add, we can, or I can quickly read the part about the Mulk and Malakut, the inner face of things versus outer face, because it is somewhat related. And then maybe I'll have your views after that, if that is fine.
Do you think we have enough time to go over Mulk and Malakut?
So we already started answering some of the questions as we go. So that means that we can read through that part.
Do you have more questions? If you have questions, maybe you can pass it.
No, we don't have
okay, that's good.
More questions. I mean, we have one more, but I think it's kind of answered in the previous parts. So I'll read that, and at least we can, talk about it a little bit in the next few minutes. And I will not go through the part about the other wisdom behind the causes. Okay. So that is to say, causes have been placed so that the dignity of power may be preserved in the superficial view of the mind. For, like the two faces of a mirror, everything has a face that looks to this manifest world, which resembles the mirror's colored face, and may be the means to various colors and states. And everything also has a face that looks to its maker, which resembles the mirror's shining face. In the apparent face that looks to the manifest world, our world, there may be states incompatible with the dignity and perfection of the eternally besought one's power, and causes have been put to be both the source and the means of those states. But in respect of reality and the face that looks to their creator, everything is transparent and beautiful. It is fitting that power should itself be associating with it. It is incompatible with its dignity, therefore, causes are purely apparent. It is not incompatible with its dignity, therefore, causes are purely apparent, and reality have no true effect. So I think here, I guess two things that I can think of, and I'll give the microphone to Brother Ömer to explain it a little further, is that there's this example where we think about the mirror with a shining face and a colored face. One face have, might change and might not always have the final state. And there is the shining face where it is so and there's apparent face, and like the mirror has two different sides, I would guess. And I guess this is from that example, the understanding is there is a face in everything, every action, everything that we see that is changing, and that might not maybe give the full big picture, which might appear not beautiful, but I guess behind the scenes that actually is beautiful. So how should we understand one single thing from two perspectives, appearing both not as beautiful, and thus connected to causes, and the very same thing looking from another perspective, looking absolutely beautiful, and that being connected to the creator. Maybe we'll start with my brother. He hasn't spoken for a while.
Thank you. This example is, very good for us to understandable. Inshallah, the example of mirror, and actually we're talking about the same mirror, right? Mirror has two faces, one shining face and the other, the back. It's usually colored face, and it might have like different colors, and it's usually like no one looks at the behind, right? Because behind is ugly. Everyone looks at the shining face. And we as we talked, from the beginning of this session, that everything is created by God, and everything that is created by the one who is the most knowledgeable. He is the most powerful and most beautiful, should be beautiful. Everything he creates is beautiful. And he says in other parts, if a beautiful person looks at the mirror should reflect the beauty, right? Not ugliness. If a beautiful person looks at the mirror reflects the beauty, not ugliness. You will see nothing, no ugliness in the mirror from the shining face. But from the behind, like you will see different colors, different shapes, it might be different than the other face. And everything he says here has two faces. In the sickness, for example, you can look at sickness from shining face or from the colored face. If you look at from the shining face, it's amazing how he puts it. Everything is universe, from the smallest atom, the huge star, everything that comes in our life, everything that we encounter is coming from the most beautiful one. God has beautiful names, and everything in this universe is the reflection of the one who is most beautiful, right? It comes from his beautiful names. Everything is supposed to be good and beautiful. If we look from shining face, for example, the sickness, if we look at the sickness from the colored face, from the backside, we will see a lot of pains, and we will criticize the causes, and we will say, oh, I got cold, I got disease, and so that I'm here in hospital suffering, I lost my job, I did so many things. We will criticize things. But if you look at the shining face, everything is happening with the command, permission, knowledge, and power of God. So it is supposed to be good. So the six, for example, we can see as just one example. How can we say that sickness is good? It's mentioned that in the tafsir, the sickness, for example, we came here to this world to trade for eternal life, right? We came here to do eternal life. And the capital given to us is the minutes of our lives in this world. And we are supposed to use those minutes to earn eternal life. But what do we do? As most people, we just waste those minutes. And we can buy huge palaces, mansions, huge property in Jannah, in heaven, but we are usually wasting it. But when sickness comes, the sickness is transforming the minutes of my life into hours of worship, and it's earning for me eternal properties, eternal places, eternal mansions in Jannah. So if you look at just this is one aspect of sickness. If you look from that aspect, it's beautiful. No one can criticize, and everyone will be thankful. It's mentioned in hadith that people, when they see people, the sick people who suffered in the world, and given the rewards, they will be jealous. They will say, I wish I suffered those sickness that I could get those rewards. If this is just one aspect of being sick, and this is the shining face of the mirror. If you look from that mirror, everything in this world is nothing is ugly. Inshallah, there are actually more things maybe we can talk about next week, but inshallah, since we are a little out of time, I can stop here, inshallah.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt anyone, because mashallah, like everyone had very great insights and inputs to provide, and I would like to thank everyone about that. And I guess another thing that comes out of your explanations, Brother Amar, is that the different tenets of belief are also connected to give us the bigger picture of things, like in the example that you've provided, right? Belief in the hereafter, and it completes this picture of the bigger picture, right? To provide us because without knowing about the hereafter, the afterlife, we cannot really understand the big picture, or we might not be able to see the beauty behind things, or if we don't, understand prophets or angels or different, tenets of belief, um, it is more likely to go into those, risky or dangerous areas of worshipping causes as stated in the beginning. So that is also another point that I take out of this. But yeah, Jazakallah khair um, for your contribution. And you, as Brother Amar said, we are out of time, but I would like to um, give Brother Harun and Brother Baikar, maybe a couple minutes each, just to, wrap up their thoughts, and we might continue this topic in some other form. But yeah, this was a great discussion with that. So maybe Brother Baikar and then Brother Harun. Just a couple minutes to wrap up your thoughts, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah, until next week we can little bit have more reflection on our own lives about the importance of causes in our own understanding, because in every single century, volumes of Islamic literature is written about shirk, and there's many types of hidden shirk, and scholars thought about their own time and culture, and about this Islamic societies of that time, and they analyzed their certain attitudes and habits, and then criticize this. But in this particular age, the whole humanity is facing this huge shirk, and unfortunately we are overwhelmed with that. We do everything to apply the causes in our lives. We're just into it. This is our business, from the kindergarten until the end of our lives. We're just trying to apply and do everything best we can in the realm of causes to just run our lives. And just let's think about it. What's the importance of this in our lives? Are we really relating to our creator everything, or all these thick curtains, veils, covers of chain of causes are covered all around us, and there's a huge gap between us and our creator. Just until next week, try to experience or reflect on this causes, inshallah.
Yeah, indeed, as I tried to say in the beginning, it is not an easy topic to grasp in just a lecture or a discussion. It needs definitely reflection, personal reflection, as well as you said, to understand these meanings. And it is indeed very important to preserve our faith. Brother Harun, maybe we'll finish with your thoughts.
Thank you. I think we are kind of out of time. Thanks for discussion, and thanks everyone for joining.
Okay, then thank you. And next week we can either continue this discussion, or we are open to suggestions, either offshoots from this discussion the participants, our audience has seen, has witnessed, wants more explanation on, or certain questions that are deep and might require more longer time for us to cover, feel free to reach out to us through one of these forums. Our email address is info@lh4h.org. But yeah, feel free to message us from our Facebook page. You can send a WhatsApp message as well to us. But let's end with that, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for all who participate. Brother Ömer, would you like to finish with a quick dua, inshallah?
ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة